is Tuma Amajabi, the chairperson, Board of Directors, National Revenue Authority. Welcome to Portland.
Thank you very much.
Talk to me about the NRE generally, but just before that, you may want to talk to me about who Tuma Amajabi is. Who is Tuma Amajabi?
Well, I'm a Sierra Leonean. I studied law. I'm a practicing solicitor. I was called to the bar sometime in 2010, in October 2010 to be precise. And after that, I've practiced law at my dad's law firm, Jabi Associates, the law firm of Dr. Bugwake Jabi. And since then, I've been with the law firm. In 2014, I was called by the Law Department at Fobe College to introduce the module Tax and Revenue Law. And since then, I've lectured Tax and Revenue Law because I've got a master's degree specialized in taxation. And in 2018, July 2018 to be precise, I was called by His Excellency the President to serve in this capacity as chairperson of the Board of Directors of the National Revenue Authority. And at this juncture, I would like to thank His Excellency the President for appointing me to serve in such a great capacity, and we'll all work hard to make sure that the new direction succeeds.
It's over a year now since your appointment, and you are the chair of the Board of Directors NRE. Talk to me about that board itself. How does it factor into the overall operations of the NRE?
Well, the National Revenue Authority was established by law in 2002 by the National Revenue Act, and in 2003 it came into existence. The Act is explicit, it is clear, it states that the Board of Directors are in control and have the supervisory power. It's the topmost on the organogram. They have all the supervisory powers when it comes to the National Revenue Authority. And what we actually do, we have 7 members, including the chairperson of the board. It's a specialized board. It's a unique one because of the work that it does. It's got the chairperson, it's got the Commissioner General, it's got the bank governor, it's got the financial secretary, it's got a legal practitioner, it has an economist, and it also has an accountant. Plus, of course, I've just mentioned the chairperson, so it's 7 members on that board. So everyone has its own unique professionalism to be on that board, and that's how the Act created it.
What is the expected outcome of that composition?
It's a different expertise, because we're talking about revenue authorities here. You need to have all this expertise on board. You'll agree with me that the National Revenue Authority is the lifeblood, or the revenue authority in every nation is the lifeblood of a nation. So because of that, you need to have the various stakeholders, like the bank governor, it deals with the economy. The financial secretary deals with the economy, representing someone from the Ministry of Finance. You also have the Commissioner General, who he is the CEO of the authority. So he is in charge of the day-to-day affairs, he is the vote controller, and he implements the policies of the board. So he has to be on the board because he needs to bring to the board certain issues, and his own expertise here also needs to be there. We have a tax expert, a tax specialist. They specialize in taxation. We also have an accountant. We also have the legal practitioner to direct us on the laws. So if we have all these professional people on board, we'll be able to come out with the expected outcomes, like policies, what's good for the NRA. And also the NRA Act gives us the mandate to recommend to the Ministry of Finance or the government revenue policies and laws or tax laws. So we can come up with that draft, we make an input, we can trigger it as well and take it to the Ministry of Finance. Now, if we do not have the requisite professionalism on there, we won't be able to handle issues like that.
Now, under your chairmanship of the board over the past year, how has your operation impacted on the success or otherwise of the operations of the NRA?
Well, first of all, when we took over in 2018, sometime, the board started sitting sometime in August 2018, the first time we had the board meeting. And we realized that the NRA is short-staffed, especially at the senior management level. There were about 70% vacancies, and one of the most important vacancies was that of the Deputy Commissioner General. The last time it became vacant sometime in 2011, and since then it was never occupied. We realized that most management staff were actually taking up other roles, whether it's in acting positions. So they had extra roles plus what they have to do in their own substantive positions. So now if you overburden someone, you won't get what exactly you may need from them. And this is revenue administration. You need to have the right manpower. You need to have the people there so that you generate the much needed revenue that's needed for a country. So what we did, we made sure that, okay, we need to first of all fill in these positions. We need to make sure that we have the right staff there, the staff that can actually do the jobs, the staff that are qualified to do these respective jobs. And we came on board and we started that and said, okay, we need to fill in those positions, and we filled it in. Now it's not only just management positions. We were short-staffed even when it came to revenue officers. So who goes out there in the field? Who does the work? Who's out there on the technical side or the practical side of things, the day-to-day affairs? We need to make sure that those positions were filled in, and we have at least a certain amount of manpower to actually do the job. So we made sure that we filled in those positions, and we recruited revenue officers, managers, supervisors as the need.
Now you just identified professionals from different spheres comprising the board of the NRA. You mentioned the financial secretary, you mentioned legal experts, and so on. How does the board work, considering the expertise, probably the busy schedule of these people? How often do you meet? How do you discuss the operations of the authority? Or is it that maybe effective or efficient management is only left with the CEO and his team?
Well, we are actually on the supervisory and control side of things. We make the policies, we come up with decisions, and we pass it over to Commissioner General.
How often is that done?
The Act actually says you make a minimum, or at least once every 2 months. But because of the nature of the authority, it's revenue administration, we sometimes meet. The minimum could be at least once a month, but sometimes when the need arises, we can do twice a month. But it's one of the most busiest boards ever, because you're dealing with revenue administration. Things changes. It changes a lot. Even the figures, they do fluctuate sometimes. And when revenue is kind of like going down, we need to meet, we need to know what's going on. There is transformation. Some ideas will come up as to what we should do to actually mitigate certain circumstances. So depending on the need, but we'll meet at least once a month.
And you just identify finance, if you like, experts, just identified other professionals, constituting the board and from the background of finance. And you've been a lawyer. How does, all of those, if you like, financial terminologies and all of this, how do you fit in all of this as I said of the authority?
Well, as I've already said earlier, I am an expert, I'll say, when it comes to taxation laws. So I've got that background. And also when you have the experts talking as a lawyer, you'll be able to dissect as to what you may need or ask leading questions for you to have clarity on it. And you're there really as the chairman, you're steering the ship. So whatever you do not understand, they're there to explain it to you because they're the experts. That's the reason why those different experts are on the board, to make sure that it is explained to us and we understand it and we'll be able to map the way forward. But because of my taxation background, it makes it extremely easier for me as well.
And what's the relationship between the board and the management?
It's a wonderful relationship. I'll say we are privileged and honored to have such a good working relationship with management. The board really interfaces more with the Commissioner General. And it happens that the Commissioner General, he wears two hats. He's the Commissioner General and he's also a director on the board. So he's always there. And we try to strike a relationship because sometimes it's not always about a straight jacket. You know, you have to understand the issues for you to come up with solutions or policies on it. And we have a wonderful working relationship. And I'm sure that revenue figures are speaking that.
All right. Madam Chair, to what extent, considering the nature of the job at the NRA, talking about revenue generation and what have you, and also considering the role of the Ministry of Finance generally, I was wondering the level of pieces of advice probably you provide to the Ministry of Finance insofar as tax policy and administration are in issue.
Well, first of all, I want to actually thank the Ministry of Finance and a special one to the Minister himself, Mr. Jacob Christopher. He has been extremely wonderful and helpful. It's one of the ministries we do hear people having issues with the MDAs or the ministry or the minister. Touchwood, so far we do not have it because we try to have that kind of relationship with them. We go there, we explain things to them. As I already said, the same strategy we use with the management is the same we use with the minister. And he's very helpful, he's very understanding. I'll give you, for example, with regards to our agency fee, it's just an example. All these years, the Act states that the National Revenue Authority is entitled to 3% of revenue generated as an agency fee, and that should be paid annually.
What's agency fee? The
agency fee, because we are the agent. The National Revenue Authority is an agent that has a sole mandate to collect revenue on behalf of the state. So the money, say for example, if we collect 1 billion loans per day or per week, we are entitled to 3% of it.
Is it like lawyers 10%, you see?
Something like that. So, but the Act is explicit on it. That's the funds that the authority lives on. So the fund it lives on is the 3% fee that's been paid out of revenue generated. The Act says it should be paid annually. But over the years, there has been this issue between NRA and the Ministry of Finance, because sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes it will take over 6 months that the authority is not able to achieve on its mandates because of lack of funds. But when this new administration came in, they saw the need. They said, no, we don't want to be having any issues with the National Revenue Authority. We want to be on good terms with them because we want them to do their work and we also want to do our work. And we do realize that you cannot do it without these funds. So what we're going to do, even though we haven't amended Act per se, but we will in the 2019 Finance Act go to Parliament and say, whatever monies that are being generated, the 3% will be paid weekly. So now the authority can work. The National Revenue Authority can work. It can achieve on its mandate. We do not have these issues anymore with the Ministry of Finance. We have not been paid. You're holding on to our funds. Not anymore. And this only happened because we have the kind of supportive ministry headed by the Minister of Finance with his, Mr. Christopher. So I want to say thanks to him for that.
We are also aware of the pronouncement by His Excellency the President, requiring the all MDs or generating, if you like, revenue generating institutions to deposit into the consolidated fund all revenues generated. The pronouncement signaled implementation of what you find out to be the Fiscal Management and Control Act. How would that increase if it has not revenue generation?
Well, in fact, it has increased it. That's the executive order number 1. What the president did when he came in, he immediately said that all money is generated. We do not per se have an account. Say it's a transit account. So whatever monies that are being generated by the National Revenue Authority, be it taxes, be it fees, these monies coming into this transit account, into the different commercial banks that we use, and immediately by the end of the banking day, it goes directly to BSL, into the Consolidated Revenue Fund. So it doesn't stay in the transit account. It goes to BSL. So there is transparency, and we have transparency and accountability. So because of that, you won't start thinking of any other, funny things to do. You actually see the money that's been generated per day not even weekly. When before it will be weekly, sometimes monthly, not anymore. So everything comes in per day anymore. It doesn't stay in those accounts. It goes directly to the government.
Now, as an expert, I mean, you just mentioned that you also lecture module dealing with revenue generation, in Sierra Leone University. There is this concern, if not fear, that with the Fiscal Management and Control Act, there's a likelihood for institutions or MDs, to lose control over what they generate. And this is likely to affect timely response to their needs.
I do not believe that they will lose anything. If anything at all, is that we've been accountable and we'll be transparent here. Because I do not see why one would want to hold on to such monies. All these monies that are being generated, because if you go to certain ministries and departments, you will see an NRA staff there, and you'll be issued with an NRA receipt. If you go to, say, for example, Ministry of Lands, whatever you pay, whether it's your fines, whether it's the fees, whether it's your freehold consideration, whatever it is, you're given an NRA receipt anyway. So NRA is present there. It's been made clear in the Finance Act that NRA should be present in all MDAs to collect taxes, fees, and whatever fines, even at the courts. So NRA is always there. So NRA has the sole mandate to do this. We collect all those monies, and we've got the banks, the transit banks, and from there it goes to BSL. I don't see how it can affect anyone wanting to hold on to these monies, because it's not yours anyway. It goes to the government, and the Ministry of Finance has the mandate to distribute to you whatever your funds.
How timely is that, do you think? Sometimes there's this protracted, route taking to have, funds disbursed sometimes, to MDs and the like, should they require need to respond to their own personal needs, institutional needs? How timely do you think that?
I believe that's for the Ministry of Finance to answer. We only have the mandate to generate the funds and pass it over to PSL, and it's the Ministry of Finance that deals with expenditure. But I believe with their budgets and all of that, you present your budget, is approved by the Ministry of Finance, then it goes to Parliament, then it's for them to disperse it.
You just spoke of the 2019 Finance Act. Mm-hmm. I mean, from what we report on, or what we gather, it provides for the use of web-based, they call it ASICUDA system. How is it impossible that unscrupulous individuals do not bypass the system?
Well, it is watertight. With every other thing, there may be people that will bypass, but we haven't had any reports so far of any bypass.
What's the magic?
It's a technology. We use one of the best technologies, which is the ASICUDA award, and the monitoring system as well. Now, I don't know whether you've been down to the ports. When you go to the customs office, we also have the tracking system, the tracking monitors there that will have on the system. Say, for example, if you, Mr. Kapua, import something, and you could be anywhere in the world and import it and input it on the ASICUDA system, do your declaration on the system. So when you declare it, it tells you exactly, it shows up on the tracking system. If you go to the ports, you go to the different corners, you will see it. It straight away comes up that so-and-so tracking, so-and-so person has inputted the declaration. So we have this transparency. The Commissioner General can be in his office and he could be watching to see how long it takes. Now the whole idea is really a 24 hours response time, because when you go, you input it, we have immediately transparency. Everyone is watching within the authority, and from there we have the SMS messaging system. So the minute you input it in the system, even your clearing agents, the text message doesn't go to your clearing agent, it goes to you, the importer, because we are hoping that the telephone number that's on your BL is that of the importer and not of the clearing agent. So the minute you input the details and your message comes up, your telephone number comes up, so the importer knows exactly where they are in the clearing process, because we want to reduce the delay. We want to, because some people used to complain that it will take weeks. It will take 5, 6, 7 days for them to clear the goods, when it shouldn't really take that long. So which is why we have introduced, we are now rolled over from something called Asikuda Plus Plus to Asikuda World. You declare it, everything is online. We want to do a one-stop shop, which is why we've also brought in commercial banks into the customs. So it's like you don't need to go out and you don't need to congest other commercial banks. So as soon as you're there, you've done your declaration, and they've come up with whatever you need to pay. There's the bank there where at the key, there's the banking booth where you pay your duty and everything on that. And from there, if it needs 100% examination or any form of examination, they will check it. But we are trying to reduce on 100% examination because we have something called the PCA, which is the post-clearance audit. So if you clear your goods, we're not too satisfied, or even we'll allow it to go to decongest the port, we'll allow it to go, then we'll have one of the agents to actually go do the examination at the destination where that
sounds great. In fact, the Asikuda system, from your explanation, sounds great. But I was also wondering, it's sophisticated from the explanation, appears really great. But then my concern is, how do we sustain the running of that system, whether or not there is a system?
Well, we do have the standby generators. They are there. So to make sure that we do use them. And what we actually did as well, we did trainings for the clearing agents to make sure that they are au fait with it. When it first started, as you would know, with anything new, any new technology or new reform, certain people would try not to, they will always find excuses not to follow it. Oh, I'm in my office, I tried to do the declaration, I didn't have internet, I didn't have... So what we did, we found the hub and the customs to say, okay, this is here, come do the training, we'll make XYZ computers available, make sure you come here and do the declaration. But this is the new NRA, and this is how it's going to be. Even worldwide now, when it comes to revenue administration, the trend is automation. Everywhere, it has to be automated. We're going online with things now. It's trying to get less of the papers, because when the more papers you use, the more discretion you use. But when you input it on the system speaks.
Madam Chair, it is not uncommon that unscrupulous people may tend to initiate methods of undermining the system. Now, how do we track, if you like, corruption and bribery in all of these? By setting up that system, to ensure transparency, that everything is done. I mean, you have cameras, you explain, you have all the systems. Is there any way you are able to track people who may appear to do otherwise?
Well, first of all, we have, even though it's not visible, but we have the presence of anti-corruption around. So anti-corruption can pop in at any time, as and when.
You mean the scorpions of the ECC?
Oh yes, sir. And we do not know them, but they come in with the wind and go back with the wind. But the other thing that we tried to work on as well, as I said earlier, was the SMS message. Now that SMS messaging doesn't only tell you that you've done a declaration. It tells you also when you've been assessed what you have to pay as an importer. It tells you about all payments that you need to pay. And that SMS message doesn't go to the claim agent, no. It goes directly to the importer, the person that owns the goods. So because of that, you will know what you'll have to pay. So I do not see why you might want to encourage bribery or corruption. And the system will tell you if your goods have taken, if your declaration has taken so long on the system, it will pop up red, and the Commissioner General is there watching, and all the supervisors and the commissioners are also there watching. Will raise an alarm. Why has it taken so long in this queue? It should have been cleared by now. What is the problem? So these are some of the things we're putting in place. Then you've also got to realize that it's a new system. We've just introduced it. So it's going to be a little bit work in progress as well. So we might see certain things that maybe will not be too good, but that we'll have to rectify because it's a new system. We also have to learn from it. There may be other systems that we might want to add to it to enhance it, to stop the bribery and corruption at the port.
We'll continue to talk about this, as we we progress with the discussion. But I was also going to factor this in because there is this information that the installed ICT infrastructure now at the NRA is even at hand. How would this support is it a CUDA system and probably even that is?
Well, because without the internet you cannot work, of course, because this is online. So we need to make sure that we have the right ICT in place. So we have invested a lot in ICT, and also I know the ASICUDA world is one part, but I'm not sure whether you've heard about the ECR, that's the electronic cash register. So now when it comes to GST, you go to shops, you do your shopping, not now, they'll be rolled in by the end of the year, but the contract has been signed. Now, again, we're trying to reduce on the one-on-one human contact, because when you go, you input whatever goods you put on the cash register, it will tell the importer what they've sold and what the GST is, or the taxes that they ought to pay. And that is a real-time register. It registers also, the minute you input that in, it registers on the side of NRA. So we are on both sides. So it's good for the businessman, is good for NRA. So we'll be able to track it and we'll know what taxes is due to us, and you'll be also able to know what are the goods that you've sold, and you'll be able to monitor exactly what's going on. It saves time. You do not need to come back again to say this is what I did, this is what I did, this is what I did.
But I'm just telling you more about the electronic customs and single window.
The single window is the same thing that's still on the ASICUDA world. So it's like a one-stop shop, as I've already said. So everything that you need to do with customs before, if you've ever been to the ports, you go from one room to the other, where you do the declaration, where they do the assessment, where they do this. But on that ASICUDA world, where you input it, it's there. As soon as you do the declaration, immediately it does the assessment. And when it does the assessment, you don't go out. The banks are right there. You either pay there, or now we're trying to get BSL. Very soon we'll be paying that online.
Now, I mean, you may want to say this again, because it's very important probably for even our viewers. We know about the data matching project. Taxpayers more often than not attempt to under-disclose or under-declare their businesses and turnovers. First, how do you come to unravel this fraud? Well,
now, if we work with the importers, say for example, you are in a country like China, you send your goods. So when you are you're shipping your goods, you declare exactly what's in that container. And that information now, we'll be able to get hold of that information, and it's in our system to say that container XYZ, it's on its way, this is what that's in there, and this is what that was declared, and this is how much it costs. But sometimes when it comes here, people declare exactly what's in the container. In case any damages or anything happens, they want it to be refunded, or they want some form of compensation for it. So on that side, where they're actually exporting it, on that side, they do the real declaration. But when it comes in, someone may want to under-declare. So because we already have that information, we know what's in there. And we also have a global pricing for certain goods. Say for example, if it's a paper, we know roughly how much it will cost. So if you under-declare, the system will pick it up. It will take you to a lane called the red lane to say, this is not how much it should be. So those are some of the measures. The ASICUDA world is quite good.
Now, will the data matching actually address the fraud? Because this is informed by a certain position. There is information that, the allegation that some senior NRA officers and tax consultants for the big businesses in this country, I mean, they serve them, consultants, and the staff of institutions sometimes, they serve as consultants for many big businesses, across the country. And there's a tendency for them, the likelihood, to advise their clients to under-declare.
Well, first of all, you shouldn't have any other job. If you're working at the National Revenue Authority as an employee,
you can't be a tax consultant?
No. Unless, of course, if you come with queries at the authority, the person in their respective capacity can answer those queries, but they ought not to serve as consultants in a private capacity. They shouldn't do that.
Why is that?
Because you cannot be a referee and a player at the same time. There is conflicts right there. And you are there at the authority to collect revenues, to make sure that we generate the much needed revenue. And you are, on the other hand, advising someone to underdeclare.
In case you are just joining us, you are watching Bottom Line, and my guest tonight is Tuma Adama Jabi. She is the chairperson of the board of directors, not board of trustees. I was going to say board of trustees as a Serial Broadcasting Corporation, but she is the chair of the board of directors of the NRA, and she's here taking us through the highs and lows of the operations of the NRA and how their job as a board factors into the overall operations of the NRA. We'll be back shortly with some of the text messages that are coming in. You continue to send them to 030-022-639, 030-022-639. The program is Bottom Line. We'll be back shortly.
Coming up on Bottom Line this Tuesday, we search within the winds of change blowing at the NRA to see the impact of reforms within the Customs Department. We ask, how will the newly introduced SMS messaging system in the Asikuda help ease the process of clearing goods and reduce bureaucracy and corruption? What do business people stand to gain from the introduction of operations on Saturdays and the in-house banking system at Customs? Join your host, Joseph Egbenda Kapua, as he talks to the Chairman, Board of Directors, NRA, Tuma Jabi, on these and the recently held retreat between the NRA Board of Directors and staff of the Ministry of Finance to discuss the draft NRA Act. That's coming up this Tuesday on Bottom Line at 7 p.m. on the SLBC, the nation's public service broadcaster. And don't forget, you can also catch us on Facebook at SLBC TV channel 31 and also on YouTube. Be a part of the conversation. This Tuesday at 7 p.m. it's Bottom Line. Miss it, miss out.
Welcome back to Bottom Line. Like I said, my guest tonight is the chairperson of the National Revenue Authority, and the name is Tuma Adama Jabi. Mine is Joseph Egbenda Kapua. Now, Madam Chair, let's look at the revenue generated over the period, and the measures adopted in generating that revenue. I mean, it has also been pointed out that fuel subsidy adversely affects, if you like, revenue generation, impinging on government expenditure. Subsidy was liberalized in July of 2018. Is there any impact on the revenue generated under your tenure?
Sure. First of all, as I said earlier, there was a problem, which was manpower, the human resource. It wasn't there. We came straight away, and that was handled. Those vacancies were filled. So we started thinking of what can we do? And to be honest, the Executive Order number 1 helped a lot. So when that came in, because we get it yearly to know what our GDP ratio is, because it's done yearly. So when we came in from July 2018 to December, in July, the revenue to GDP ratio was 12%. Now, as you may know, in His Excellency's manifesto and promise to Sierra Leoneans was that until the revenue to GDP ratio hits 20%, by 2023, he wants it to hit 20%. And until he hits 20%, Sierra Leoneans will not celebrate, or he wouldn't say we should celebrate independence in a grand style. You can celebrate independence in your home. Now, not that he may not want us to celebrate it, but he's looking at the funds. We need to hit that target. We need to see that we are generating revenue. We need to see that we have the funds to do what we are doing. So within the short spell, when we came in, it's a robust administration at the National Revenue Authority, the board and management inclusive, and the staff. revenue came from 12% to 14% in just that 6 months spell. And we are hoping, with all the reforms that we have put in place this year, that it will also jump from 14% to a certain amount, to a certain percentage that will be good for Sierra Leone, because we have a duty to make sure that we generate this revenue, because they are there, and if it's there, we should close the loopholes and make sure that we generate it. And these are all due to the reforms that we're currently implementing. Now, you can also have the manpower, but they are not capacitated. When we came in, we also realized this. We also realized that some of the staff were not even the basics. Had been a while that they haven't been refreshed, no refresh or anything like that. So what we did, we also did a board management retreat doing on corporate governance to make sure that we have a training on corporate governance. So we brought in the corporate people, Michael and others, Corporate Affairs Commission, to do the training, which they did for the board and management, because you could even be a director on the board. Maybe you're only specialized in your field, but you also need to know how corporate governance works and how everything should work to make sure that we work as a team and we achieve what we ought to achieve. And that was the first time that had ever been done at NRA. So we did that, and the whole idea was when you get the training, you CP down. So it's like a top-bottom approach that we introduced, because we cannot get everyone at the retreat and all the staff to be there, because the funds are not there and we do not have that kind of resources. So what we do, when you get it, you CP down to the ones below so that everyone has the relevant trainings that they
Can you
need.
generate revenue for the country largely? Do you want to share with our viewers how our GDP is faring?
Well, that's what I've just said. We've actually gone from 12% to, that was in 2018. So we're now waiting for the figures, but I'm certain that that figure, that percentage is definitely going to go up, because we have generated...
What are the contours, if you like, to achieving that, to realizing that? I mean, you are very optimistic that we will attain that.
Like the targets. Now, there are target sets. We have the IMF target as a revenue that we should generate, and we have the government target. Now, when this new administration came in, we set a target to say this is what we'll get. IMF saw it as maybe, oh, this is quite a bit over ambitious. So because of that, we'll set our own targets, and the IMF target was a bit lower. And I'm proud to say that we have hit all our targets and way above the IMF targets.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. So we have exceeded our targets, in other words.
Yes, we have.
Right.
So far.
Take us through some of the issues that you have embarked on. We hear of tax guide you recently launched. This week or last week, you launched as a guide. Also hear of some reviews at the place at Stoke. What's happening? Because there's this rumor that the NRA is concerned about the nature of its act, said that there is the position to review it. What key areas of that act do you want to review, even as you talk to me about the tax guide? Okay,
So first of all, since the enactment of the NRA Act in 2002, it's never ever been amended. Now, there are certain issues in there. I spoke about the Finance Act earlier, to say that the Finance Act, there's a certain provision which states that the revenue that you do generate, the 3% agency fee, should be paid annually, or as it says annually in the Act, but there was at the time an arrangement with the Ministry of Finance. Now that's paramount, because we need funds to be able to do our work. So now the Act is going to look at that so that it replicates what's already in the Finance Act. Even though it's the Finance Act, but you need the proper NRA Act to be amended. Secondly, even though the NRA, our supervisory ministry, is the Ministry of Finance, the National Revenue is semi-autonomous. Meaning we are on our own. We are a corporate body. We could be sued, and we can sue. It gives us the mandate. So because of that, that makes us semi-autonomous. So what we now did is like the old act is silent on the Ministry of Finance, the role of the Ministry of Finance. So we're like, okay, they are the supervisory body. It has to be explicit in the new act that this is what it is, XYZ. And we're also looking at having more specialists on the board. Now, if you listen to what I said earlier, or if you recall what I said earlier, we spoke about the specialists on the board. These are specialized people. Then any other person will start thinking, hold on a minute, taxpayers are the one paying the taxes. Do we have any private sector representative on the board? Maybe if NRA has a private sector representative on the board, they might start thinking about how the taxpayers feel. Because I don't ask
So
the
it has
tax...
been amended to factor in the representation
from the
taxpayers?
yes, or from the private sector, because tax shouldn't be a burden and it shouldn't be by ambush. I see taxation as having a client's relationship, a client's business relationship. It's like with taxes you're mandated to pay them, but still make it a bit less burdensome on the taxpayers. Make it user friendly. Make it, no one wants to pay taxes, but you want to make it easy and you want to listen to them as well. We sit there at the board, we take decisions. We're not there. We need to listen to them. So maybe if we do have a private sector representative on the board, they will come up with different ideas to see what we do. And we also launched a tax guide. Now this is the first time this has ever happened. So it could mean anyone, including your good self, can go there and pick up the tax guide and browse through. Say for example, you ship something. How much really would it cost if I ship a paper, this printing paper into Sierra Leone? How much really would it cost me to clear it? Now sometimes you go to the agents, you go to other people. Taxation, I always say, is law. And it's what the law says that we apply. Literally, we do not imply when it comes to taxation, because you want to cut down on discretion so that it doesn't lead to corruption. Now, you take the act, it's so bulky or convoluted. Who will be able to read it? These people, just business people or importers, or so just want to know what it is. But the tax guide, you can open it and, you know,
Is it
the easy.
Is it online?
It will be available online soon on our NRA website, very, very soon. But what we're also trying to do is to take it around embassies, the Sierra Leone embassies around the world, so investors that are coming in will be able to go to our embassies and pick up a copy and look into it, and so that they will know in a fair view what's expected of them when they come to Sierra Leone, the taxes that they think they should pay, the taxes they're expected to pay when they come to Sierra Leone, and they start thinking whether to invest or not. And we're hoping that when they go through our tax guide, they will definitely come to Sierra Leone to invest. We need to start building the bridges. We need to start building this country. We need to start building the human capital, which is why His Excellency the President is going on the free education guide. And we are proud to say that the revenue we have generated has solely supported it.
Now, Madam Chair, let's also have this. Probably we'll end on this note, because we understand there has been international conferences, you know, that Sierra Leone has not actually just attended, but has played the role of a midwife in the matter of revenue generation drive and techniques to other countries. Now, you represented the country to the NRA in some of those conferences, and what's new, you know, what really came out of those, what's the message, and how did Sierra Leone factor there?
Okay, now the way NRA has been doing so well, that it has not just been recognized nationally, it has also been recognized internationally. So sometime in November 2018, we received a correspondence from the BRI, Xi Jinping, that's the Belt and Road Initiative by Xi Jinping, saying that we want to have tax administrations around the world to come together and form one. So all tax organizations, tax administrations come together, and they will form one global one. So when they come together, you'll be entitled to like trainings, and basically they want to have a tax-friendly environment worldwide. So they requested us to go there. We went there, but the way they saw how we deliberated and did what we are doing, they said, okay, you know what? we want Sierra Leone, we're having an election, we have to form the council for the BRITICOM. That's the Belt and Road Initiative Tax Administration Corporation Mechanism. So that's the international what we're talking about. So they said, well, the way Sierra Leone is doing well, we really want Sierra Leone on, but it's an election, so you have to run for the position. So then we ran, and they said, we do not want no less a person, but the board chairperson, to run for this position. And it was the position of the vice chair, because the chair is the country that hosts that conference that will become the chair. So the vice chair, they want 4 vice chairs to represent worldwide. And I can proudly say that we went into elections and Sierra Leone actually won. And we became one of the 4 vice chairs for BRITICOM. And in my humble self represent Sierra Leone, and not just represent Sierra Leone, the National Revenue Authority. And I happen to be the only female and the only African on that council.
How did you canvass support? I mean, you were there alone from Sierra Leone and all of this, and we're talking about election.
Yes.
How were you able to clinch your way through, if you like?
Well, I did my presentation, and I did the gains, what Sierra Leone has done under the short while the national revenue had done, and our goals and where we intend going. So because of our achievements and our goals in the future and the presentation that I did, and I really didn't do any campaigning. It was only my presentation I did, and it was time to vote. And it was time to vote, and by the time you know, overwhelmingly, I was appointed. I was elected. So I said, okay, and I wasn't just appointed. They're like, you know what, you've done so well, we want you to be in charge of the conferences. So okay. I am actually in charge.
And on that note of your election, let me congratulate you, Madam Chair, on being the Vice Chair of that body. I'm afraid that's all what we have time for, but just before we go, let's see what some of our viewers have been saying. I think this is a wonderful approach. Keep doing the good work. The President made no mistake in choosing Madam Tuma Jabi. Keep up the good work. This is from Lecturer J.Y. Mahoy, Ropi. Madam, my question is on tax deduction. Why NRA are taxing rent allowances from civil servants who are residing in low-cost houses with private homes, who I believe private house owners are paying city rates to council, but the civil servants' monies are cut as rent and tax to the NRA. Probably you may want to go through this if you have time. I'm afraid we don't have time for that at the moment, but we will endeavor to canvass response from the NRA through the board chair, Mr. Lecturer J.Y. Mahoy, insofar as the rent and the tax to the NRA is an issue. Hope you have enjoyed the program. Like I said, our guest tonight has been the board chair of the NRA, and Tuma Adama Jabi, who's been taking us through the first 14 months of her leadership at the NRA as chair of the board, the highs and lows of the administration at the NRA, and what they have been able to achieve largely as a board. We hope you've enjoyed the program, but if you missed part of all of this edition, we are back with a fresh edition of Bottom Line next week. This program was produced by the Deputy Director General, Almani Lahai Kumara, and with many thanks to members of the technical crew. Joseph Egwenda Kapua is the name. Bye-bye.
Coming up on Bottom Line this Tuesday, we search within the winds of change blowing at the NRA to see the impact of reforms within the Customs Department. We ask, how will the newly introduced SMS messaging system in the Asikuta help ease the process of clearing goods and reduce bureaucracy and corruption? What do business people stand to gain from the introduction of operations on Saturdays and the in-house banking system at Customs? Join your host, Joseph Egwenda Kapua, as he talks to the Chairman, Board of Directors, NRA, Tuma Jabi, on these and the recently held retreat between the NRA Board of Directors and staff of the Ministry of Finance to discuss the draft NRA Act. That's coming up this Tuesday on Bottom Line at 7 p.m. on the SLBC. The